My name is Lauren Whitfield, and the exact second I realised my mother-in-law had gambled away our future happened under a ceiling of gold streamers at our New Year's party, when she lifted her champagne flute and chirped, "To family money," multiplying. I smiled, like a good daughter-in-law. Then I looked down at her phone, because she'd shoved it into my hand for a photo, and saw the notification banner I wasn't supposed to see. Margin call. Immediate action required. My stomach didn't drop. It went still. Like my body knew before my brain did. Because family money wasn't her money. It was ours. Mine. My husband's. The money I'd been earning at 4:45 a.m. with a laptop on my knees and cold coffee on the counter, building a small business from nothing. And in that glittery living room, full of laughter and plastic tiaras, I understood something terrifyingly simple. She hadn't just managed our finances. She'd been playing with them, and if I didn't stop her tonight, she would smile through the wreckage and call it tradition. 2 months earlier, if you'd asked me what the biggest stress in my life was, I would have laughed and said something normal. Inventory delays, payroll, the fact that my best-selling product suddenly started trending and my supplier couldn't keep up. I run a small home organization and custom label business outside Seattle, Washington. Not glamorous, not Silicon Valley, but growing in that steady, satisfying way that makes you feel like you're finally steering your own life. I started it in our second bedroom with a cheap label printer and a stubborn belief that if I worked hard enough, I wouldn't have to depend on anyone's mood to feel safe. My husband, Daniel, works as a systems analyst for a healthcare network. He's calm in the way I am not. He's gentle, funny, the kind of man who will quietly refill your water without announcing he did it. And he's the kind of man who was raised to believe that if you love your parents, you don't question them. Daniel's parents are Chinese American. His mom, May, runs the household like she's managing a company that never closes. She's sharp, opinionated, and obsessed with proper ways of doing things. What you cook, how you host, what you wear, what you say, what you don't say. And the biggest rule in her world? Money is authority. Not in the save and invest responsibly way. In the whoever holds the wallet, holds the family way. When Daniel and I got married, we didn't have much. We were both late 20s, renting a townhouse, living on takeout, and optimism. My business didn't exist yet. Daniel's salary covered our bills, and we were proud of making it work. May offered help right away. Not the warm kind, the structured kind. "We can combine," she said the week after our wedding, sitting at our kitchen table, like she'd come to audit us. "It will be easier. Daniel is busy. I am experienced." I remember blinking. "Combine. What? Accounts?" she said, like it was obvious. "I will manage. You will not worry." Daniel sweet. Conflict avoiding. Daniel nodded too quickly. "Mum's really good with money," he told me after she left. Like, that was the end of the conversation. I didn't love it. I didn't. But we were newly married, and I was still trying to be the version of myself that was easy to love. The version that didn't cause friction. The version that didn't get labelled as difficult or disrespectful. So I agreed to a setup that sounded harmless at the time. May would handle the household budget, while Daniel and I focused on work. It started as her paying utilities from a joint account we both deposited into. Then it became her helping us plan savings. Then it became her saying things like, "Lauren, you spend too much at Target. Only buy what is necessary. Lauren, you do not need this type of shampoo. There is cheaper. Lauren, business is risky. Do not put too much money into business." Meanwhile, my business was working. It was doing that rare thing businesses sometimes do when you've bled for them long enough. It began to grow. I went from 10 orders a week to 50, from 50 to 200. I hired a part-time assistant, then another. I got a tiny storage unit. Then I signed a lease on a small studio space that smelled like fresh paint and hope. The first month I paid myself a real paycheck. I cried in my car like a lunatic, because it wasn't just money. It was proof that I wasn't just someone's wife. I was building something, and May hated that, in a quiet, polite way that still felt like a knife. Whenever I talked about my business, she would tilt her head like I was describing a hobby. "Very cute," she'd say. "But do not forget, real family needs stability. You should think about child soon. Child. Singular. Because in her head, we weren't a married couple building a life. We were a family line she was supervising. And the topic she supervised most aggressively? As sown. The first time she said it out loud, I was holding a plate of dumplings at her house, trying not to drop soy sauce on my sweater. "You are 30, she said, like she was reading a medical report. "You should try for baby now. And Daniel must have son. In our family, first son is important." I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Daniel's fork paused midair. Then he mumbled something like, "Mom." May waved him off. "It is tradition." And that word tradition became her favourite weapon. Tradition meant she could critique how I cooked. Tradition meant she could refold my laundry when we visited. Tradition meant she could comment on my weight with a smile. Tradition meant she could tell Daniel, in front of me, that my business was too independent for a wife. Tradition meant she could quietly tighten her grip on our finances and call it responsible. By late November, the tension had a constant hum to it. The holidays are supposed to be cozy. Twinkle lights, cinnamon, movies, dumb, matching pajamas. Instead, it felt like every festive moment came with a test. Thanksgiving at May's house was an endurance sport. The table was beautiful, the food incredible, and the atmosphere tight. May sat at the head of the table like a queen. Daniel's dad, Mr. Whitfield, stayed mostly quiet, smiling politely in that way men do when they've learned survival through silence. May asked me the same questions she always asked. "How much you make this month? Do you put money into family account? Are you still wasting money on packaging for business? Customers do not care." And then she slid into her favourite topic. "New Year party at your house," she announced. "It is good. Family must see you are doing well." I glanced at Daniel. "We're hosting?" Daniel gave me that apologetic look he always used when he had already agreed to something with his mother. "We talked about it," he said softly. "We had not, but I nodded anyway. Because saying no in front of May was like lighting a match in a room full of gas. May smiled. "Good. We invite my friends too. They will see Daniel has good wife. Good wife. Not happy wife. Not respected wife. Good. Like a grade." The first real crack showed up 3 days after Thanksgiving, in the least dramatic way possible. An email. I was at my studio space, surrounded by stacks of shipping boxes and label rolls, when my laptop pinged with a notification from our bank. Account alert. Unusual activity detected. I clicked it, expecting something boring. Instead, I saw a transfer that didn't make sense. A big one. A number that made my heart thud once. Hard. I refreshed. It was still there. The transfer description was vague, something like investment funding. And the amount wasn't, "Oops, we moved money." Money. It was serious money. The kind of money Daniel and I had been saving for a down payment. I stared at it until my eyes burned. Then I did what I should have done months earlier. I called Daniel. He answered on the second ring. "Hey babe, everything okay?" I tried to keep my voice light. "Yeah." "Quick question. Did you move money from our savings?" Silence. A small one. The kind that tells you he's calculating what you know. "No," he said. "Why?" "I got an alert," I replied. "There's a transfer labelled investment funding." Another pause. Then, maybe Mom moved it to the high-yield account she mentioned. I sat down on an overturned shipping crate because my knees suddenly forgot how to knee. "Daniel," I said carefully, "your mom has access to our savings. She manages our accounts," he said, like he was confused why that mattered. My chest went hot. "Manages doesn't mean she gets to move our down payment money without telling us." "She's trying to help," he said quickly. "She's probably investing it. Mom's been talking about how the market is good right now." I felt my stomach twist. "Investing? With our money?" "Lauren," he sighed. "It's not like she's doing something crazy. She's smart. Smart. Maybe. But being smart doesn't make you entitled." And something about the wording market is good right now made my skin prickle, because that sounded like a person who'd been watching videos and feeling bold, not a person who was carefully protecting a family. "I want access," I said, voice sharper than I intended. "To all accounts. Today." Daniel went quiet. "Why are you making this a big thing?" "Because it is a big thing." I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "Because I want to know where my money is." "Our money," he corrected. gently. I almost laughed. Right. Our money. So why does your mother have the final say? He didn't answer. And that was the answer. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, while Daniel breathed softly beside me, like we were fine. In the dark, I replayed every moment I'd dismissed. May insisting on helping with finances. May casually asking my monthly revenue like she was collecting rent. May deciding what we hosted, what we spent, what we planned. And my own role in it, how often I'd swallowed my discomfort to avoid being labelled the dramatic American wife. I got out of bed at 2:13 a.m. and opened my laptop at the kitchen island. I logged into my business accounts first, because that was the only place I felt control. Then I opened the joint bank portal, or tried to. The password didn't work. I tried again. No, my pulse started climbing. I clicked. Forgot password. The reset email didn't go to my address. It went to May's. I stared at the screen, like it had spit in my face. Because that meant something I hadn't fully admitted before. I wasn't just excluded from decisions. I was locked out. At 2:19 a.m., I did something I never do. I woke Daniel up. I shook his shoulder gently at first, then harder. "Daniel," I whispered. "Wake up," he groaned. "What, Lauren? What's wrong?" I held up the laptop. "The bank account password resets to your mum's email." He blinked at the screen, like he couldn't understand the words. Then he sat up, rubbing his face. "She probably set it up when we merged everything. It's not a big deal." I stared at him in disbelief. "Not a big deal? I can't access our own money. She's just organized," he mumbled. "No," I said, my voice shaking now. "She's in control, and you're letting her." He exhaled, frustrated. "Lauren, can we not do this at 2 a.m? I felt something in me shift. Not anger. Not yet. A colder clarity. "Fine," I said softly. "We won't do it at 2 a.m. I closed the laptop. Then I looked him dead in the eye and said, "We'll do it in public if we have to." Daniel's expression changed at that. Fear flashed because in his family, public conflict is the worst thing you can do. And in that moment, I realized May's greatest weakness was also my greatest opportunity. She could control money in private, but she couldn't survive shame in front of witnesses. The next morning, I was polite. I played the long game. I texted May like a normal daughter-in-law. "Hi, May. Hope you're doing well. I got an alert about an investment transfer from our savings. Can you explain what it was for? I'm organizing our end-of-year budget." She responded within 2 minutes. "Do not worry. I handle. Market opportunity. Family benefit." That was it. No amount. No explanation. Just a command. "Don't worry." My hands were shaking as I typed back. "I'd still like details. Can you send me a breakdown?" Her response came slower this time. "You should trust elders. Too much questioning makes marriage unstable." But I stared at that sentence until my jaw hurt. Because she wasn't talking about money. She was talking about obedience. And suddenly, my business success didn't feel like a win. It felt like a threat she needed to neutralize. By mid-December, New Year's plans were in full swing, mostly because May had planned them like she owned our house. She invited people without asking. She told me what to serve. She instructed me on decorations. She texted Daniel at 6 a.m. about appropriate party favors. And every time I tried to assert even a tiny boundary, "I'll handle the menu. We're keeping it small. I'm busy with orders," May would respond with one sharp line. Family comes first. But she didn't mean family. She meant her. And in the background, the money situation stayed unresolved, because Daniel kept avoiding it, and May kept stonewalling. I started quietly preparing, not because I was plotting something evil, because I was done being unprepared. I gathered screenshots of every account alert, a record of every transfer I could see from my limited access, my business income deposits, because if she claimed I wasn't contributing, I wanted proof. A list of questions I would ask, calmly, in front of people if necessary, and every time I saved a screenshot, I felt myself becoming someone new, not softer, not nicer, just harder to control. 3 days before New Year's Eve, Daniel came home with that careful voice he uses when he's about to disappoint me. "Mum wants us to meet her at her bank tomorrow," he said. setting his keys down like they were heavy. "My money is in her bank," I asked. He hesitated. "She moved it to an investment account there. She says it's better." I felt a slow heat crawl up my neck. "Daniel, you didn't even know where it was." He rubbed the back of his neck. "She's trying to grow it. She says she can recover." "Recover?" I repeated, and my voice came out too quiet. Daniel's eyes flicked away. That one tiny movement away told me everything. "Daniel," I said, very slowly, "did she lose money?" He didn't answer fast enough, and that was when I knew. Not fully, not the whole story, but enough. Enough that my stomach twisted with the kind of dread that tastes metallic. Because people who are recovering aren't managing money, they're chasing losses. And the person chasing losses with our down payment was the woman who thought she owned my marriage. I nodded once, like I was taking notes. "Okay," I said. "We'll meet her." Daniel exhaled, relieved. "Thank you." I looked at him and didn't smile. "I'm not doing this to be nice," I said softly. "I'm doing this to get the truth." On New Year's Eve morning, our house smelled like pine and lemon cleaner. I was wiping down counters, arranging trays, setting out sparkling cider for the kids coming later, pretending my hands weren't shaking. Daniel was distracted, checking his phone every 5 minutes because May had been texting him non-stop. At 11:07 a.m., she sent, "Remember, do not embarrass family tonight." I stared at that message. Then I typed back, "Then tell the truth." She didn't respond. And that's how I knew the party wasn't just a celebration, it was a stage. And May planned to stand on it like the hero, while I stood in the background like the obedient wife. She didn't realize I'd already built my own script. By 6 p.m., the first guests started arriving. Glitter dresses, sweaters with sequins, trays of food, laughter. Someone brought a karaoke machine, because of course they did. The TV in the corner played the Times Square broadcast on low volume. Gold balloons spelled out 2026 across our wall. May arrived wearing a red dress that made her look like she'd stepped out of a magazine, carrying a gift bag like she was doing us a favor. She kissed Daniel's cheek. She barely touched my shoulder. Then she walked through my house, checking things, not enjoying, inspecting. When she got to the kitchen, she leaned in and whispered, "Smile more. You look tense. People will think marriage is unhappy." I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. "Yes, May," I said sweetly, and inside my chest, something whispered back, "Not for long." At 8:42 p.m., May tapped a spoon against her glass. Everyone turned. The room was warm and loud and bright. My neighbors, Daniel's cousins, May's friends from her community group. People I barely knew. People who loved gossip disguised as concern. May lifted her flute and said, in perfect hostess English, "To a new year of prosperity, to family money, multiplying." Applause. Cheers. I took a sip of my drink and tasted nothing, because that's when she shoved her phone into my hand. "Lauren, take picture," she said. Her screen lit up, and there it was. The banner. Margin call. Immediate action required. My vision narrowed. My fingers went cold around the phone. I heard myself say, softly, without planning it, "May, what is this?" Her smile froze for half a second. Just half. Then she laughed. Light and dismissive. "Nothing. Finance thing. You don't understand." Around us, people kept smiling, still clapping, still celebrating. And I realized I had reached the edge of the version of myself who kept things private. Because private was how she won. I handed her phone back. I set my glass down, and I said calmly, clearly, loud enough for the closest cluster of guests to hear, "Actually, I understand enough, and tonight, I'm going to find out where my money went." May's eyes flashed like a warning. Daniel's face drained of color, and a few people near us went quiet, heads tilting, sensing something juicy under the glitter. May leaned closer, voice low, sharp. "Not here." I met her gaze and smiled like the perfect daughter-in-law. "Then you should have never brought it here," I said. Behind her, someone's laugh faltered. A chair scraped, and in the corner, the TV counted down to midnight like it had no idea a different countdown had already started. Because the next few hours weren't going to be about a new year. They were going to be about control, and who was finally losing it. The room didn't explode right away. That's the thing people never tell you about moments like this, the ones where everything actually changes. They don't come with screaming or dramatic music. They come with a pause, a subtle shift in air, the sound of laughter thinning out as people instinctively lean closer. May's smile stayed frozen on her face, but her eyes sharpened like glass. "Lauren," she said quietly, in Vietnamese accented English she used only when she was angry. "You are emotional. Not tonight." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move closer. I didn't do anything that could be labeled hysterical or disrespectful. I just said, "Then explain it." Around us, a small circle had already formed. Daniel's cousin Amy, one of May's friends from her community group, my neighbour Jill, pretending to check her phone while absolutely listening. Daniel stepped between us like a human shield. Hey, let's just take this to the other room." May grabbed his arm. "No," she said sharply. "Family matters. Stay inside family." I looked at Daniel, really looked at him, and felt something settle in my chest. "That's funny," I said, "because my money seems to have left the family without my consent." That did it. A ripple went through the group's small gasps, raised eyebrows, that unmistakable O sound people make when they realize a party just turned into a show. May laughed again, but this time it was brittle. "You misunderstand. Investment always has ups and downs." "Ups and downs with our down payment?" I asked. "Or just downs?" Daniel whispered, "Lauren, please." I turned to him, calm as ice. "Daniel, when did your mother first invest our savings?" He hesitated. That hesitation was loud. People noticed. May snapped. "Daniel does not need to answer this." I smiled politely. "Actually, he does. Because his name is on the account. Mine is supposed to be too." Someone behind me murmured, "Wait, what?" I took a breath. This was it. No retreat now. "I couldn't access our bank account last week," I said, projecting just enough for the nearby group to hear. "The password reset goes to May's email." Silence. Real silence this time. Daniel's aunt blinked. "What do you mean? Her email?" May's voice dropped. "Lauren, you are crossing line." "No," I said. "You crossed it when you locked me out." Daniel looked at his mother, confusion and panic warring on his face. "Mum, why is the reset going to your email?" She turned on him, furious. "Because you are busy. Because I help. Because you asked me to." "I asked you to help," he said weakly. "Not to control." That word control hung in the air like smoke. May's jaw tightened. "You are letting your wife poison you." I laughed once. Sharp. "No, May. You're angry because I finally asked questions." One of her friends cleared her throat awkwardly. "Maybe we should give them space?" May shot her a look. "No, there is nothing to hide." I nodded. "Great. Then let's talk numbers." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Not her phone. Mine. And opened the folder I'd prepared. Screenshots. Dates. Transfers. "I got an alert for a transfer labelled investment funding 2 weeks ago," I said. "That amount came from our savings. Our house fund." May waved her hand dismissively. "Short-term movement. Market will recover." "Recover from what?" I asked. "A margin call?" That word landed like a slap. Someone actually gasped. Daniel turned to his mother. "Mum, what does she mean by margin call?" May's eyes flicked, just for a second, to the phone in her hand. And that was when I knew I'd been right. "You told me you were investing responsibly," I said. "Margin calls happen when someone borrows against an investment and it drops." May's voice went sharp. "You do not understand investing." "I understand enough to know you don't gamble with money that isn't yours," I replied. Daniel's face had gone pale. "Mum, did you borrow against our savings?" She didn't answer immediately. That silence was everything. "Finally," she said. "It was temporary. Very common strategy. For your money." I snapped. Then I checked myself, lowered my tone. Not for mine. The room was fully quiet now. Even the karaoke machine had gone silent. Someone turned the TV volume down. May straightened her shoulders. "You are being disrespectful in front of guests." I smiled. "You're right. This is embarrassing." Her chin lifted. Triumphant. "For you." I finished. Daniel looked like he might throw up. "How much?" he asked. May opened her mouth, closed it, then said, "Enough to grow. That's not a number," I said. He pressed. "Mum, how much?" She snapped. "Why does it matter? Family money stays in family." I stepped closer, not aggressive, just present. "Because it's gone, isn't it?" Her eyes burned. "I can fix it," she said. "Market turns, always turns." "With what?" I asked. "More of our savings? Or do you plan to tell us after that disappears too?" Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "Mum, how much did you lose?" "Lose. There it was." May inhaled sharply. "It is not lost. It is unrealized." I didn't even look at her when I said it. I looked at Daniel. "She lost money," I said calmly. "And she didn't tell us." His shoulders sagged, like something inside him finally broke. "How much?" he repeated. May's lips trembled, not with guilt, but with rage. "About 40%, she said. The room sucked in a collective breath. My vision went white at the edges. 40%. That was not a dip. That was devastation. That's our down payment," Daniel whispered. "And more," I said quietly, "because she borrowed against it." May exploded. "I did this for you, for your future. You are too American, you think, only short term." I laughed again, but this time there was no humor in it. "No, May, I think about consent." Her friend backed away slowly, like she didn't want to be in the blast radius. Daniel looked around, suddenly aware of the audience. "We need to talk privately." May grabbed his wrist. "No. She wants show? I give show." She turned to the room. "In our culture, elders manage money. Children respect. Wives support." I raised my hand slightly. "Then explain why I was locked out." No answer. "Explain why you didn't tell us about the losses." Silence. "Explain why you thought my income was yours to risk." May's face flushed red. "You married into this family?" I nodded. "Yes. Not into your portfolio." That line did it. Someone snorted. Another guest shifted, uncomfortably. May leaned toward me, voice shaking with fury. "You think, because you make little money now, you are powerful?" I smiled softly. "I think because I make my own money. I don't need permission." Daniel finally stepped fully between us. "Mum, stop." She stared at him like she'd never seen him before. "You choose her over me?" she hissed. Daniel swallowed. "I choose the truth." That hurt her more than anything I could have said. I took advantage of the moment. "Here's what's going to happen," I said evenly. "Tonight, you're going to tell us exactly how much is gone. Tomorrow, we separate our finances. All of them." May scoffed. "Impossible." "I already opened a new account," I said. "In my name. Daniel can join if he wants." Daniel looked at me, shocked. "You did?" "Yes," I said, without looking at him. After I realized I'd been locked out, May's eyes widened. "You planned this?" I nodded. I protected myself. She turned to Daniel, furious. "You let her do this?" He didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, "I should have done it myself." That was the moment the power truly shifted. May's shoulders sagged, not with remorse, but with the realization that the lever she'd been pulling for years had snapped. "This party is over," she snapped. "No," I said calmly. "It's just getting honest." I turned to the room. "I'm sorry to our guests. This isn't how we wanted to ring in the new year." People murmured, polite reassurances, already retreating emotionally. May grabbed her coat. "We are leaving." She looked at Daniel one last time. "You will regret this." I met her gaze. "I already regret trusting you." She flinched like I'd struck her. As she stormed toward the door, someone finally started the countdown on the TV again. 10, 9. Daniel stood frozen, torn between the woman who raised him and the woman he married. At midnight, the room erupted in half-hearted cheers. Confetti popped. Someone kissed someone else. And I stood there, watching my marriage crack open under fluorescent light and cheap champagne. Because I hadn't just challenged my mother-in-law. I'd forced my husband to choose. And I didn't yet know if he would choose me. Par trois. After the door slammed behind May, the house felt hollow. Not quiet, there was still music. The TV still flashing lights from Times Square. A few guests awkwardly pretending nothing had happened, but hollow in the way a room feels after someone yanks the power cord out of the wall. Daniel stood in the middle of the living room like he'd been dropped there and forgotten. I didn't rush him. That was the biggest change in me. Old Lauren would have softened, would have reached for his hand, would have said, "It's okay, we'll figure it out." This version of me waited, because I was done cushioning other people from the consequences of their choices. "Lauren," he started. I held up a hand. "Not here." He nodded, relieved and terrified at the same time. Okay. We quietly ushered the remaining guests out. Apologies, forced smiles, the kind of polite chaos that feels surreal when your personal life has just imploded in front of an audience. By 12:27 a.m., the house was empty. Gold confetti littered the floor like evidence. Half-full glasses sat abandoned on coasters. The balloon numbers sagged, already deflating. Daniel locked the door and leaned his forehead against it for a long moment. "I didn't know," he said. I walked to the kitchen and started stacking plates. "You didn't ask." He flinched. "That's not fair." I turned to face him. Calm, steady, isn't it? He exhaled hard. "She's my mother, and I'm your wife," I replied. "Whose money disappeared?" Silence stretched between us. Finally, he asked the question he'd been avoiding all night. "How bad is it?" I wiped my hands and picked up my phone. 40% down, plus whatever she borrowed on margin. Worst case? I looked him in the eye. "We're starting over." He sank into a chair, like the word had physical weight. "All those years," he murmured. "Saving, planning." "I know," I said quietly. "I earned half of it." That landed harder than anything else, because Daniel had always known my business existed. He just hadn't fully respected what it meant. The next morning, January 1st, we woke up hungover on adrenaline instead of alcohol. Daniel's phone was already buzzing when he came into the kitchen. "My, missed call. Another. A text. You embarrassed me. We will talk today." Daniel looked at me, uncertain. "I should call her." "No," I said. "You should call the bank." That was the first time he didn't argue. We sat at the dining table with laptops open, like two co-workers about to have the worst meeting of their lives. When the bank representative confirmed it, yes, a margin account had been opened. Yes, funds had been used as collateral. Yes, losses were realized. I watched something in Daniel's face finally break. Not anger, shame. "She told me she was conservative," he said quietly. "I didn't say I told you so." I said, "She told you what kept control." By noon, the full picture was clear. May hadn't just dipped into our savings. She treated it like leverage. To feel smart, to feel powerful, to feel necessary. And when the market turned, she hadn't stopped. She doubled down. With our future, Daniel closed his laptop and stared at the wall. "She'll say she did it for us. She did it instead of us," I replied. "That's the difference." At 3:14 p.m., May showed up unannounced. No apology. No hesitation. She walked into our house like she still owned it. Daniel stood up immediately. "Mum," she cut him off. "You let your wife humiliate me." I crossed my arms. "You gambled with my money." She ignored me completely and addressed Daniel. "You know, markets recover. This is temporary." Daniel's voice shook. "You borrowed against our savings." She waved her hand. "Everyone does this." "No," I said. "Everyone does not do this without permission." She finally turned to me, eyes blazing. "You have turned my son against me." I laughed, short and sharp. "No, I stopped letting you use him as a shield." May stepped closer. "You think because you earn money, you are equal?" Daniel's head snapped up. "She is equal." That was the first time he'd ever said it like that. Not gently, not apologetically. Femme. May stared at him like she was seeing a stranger. "I raised you," she whispered. "I know," Daniel said. "And I love you, but you crossed a line." Her voice hardened. "If you separate finances, you separate family." I took a breath. "If that's your definition of family, then yes," she scoffed. "You will regret this when you need help." I met her gaze. "I've been helping myself for years." That was the moment she realized something she couldn't undo. I didn't need her approval. And worse for her, I didn't fear her disapproval either. She turned to Daniel one last time. "Choose." He closed his eyes, then opened them. "We're separating accounts," he said. All of them. Today, her face went pale. "You cannot do this," she whispered. "We already did," I said. "And we're requesting full statements. Everything." May's composure cracked. "You don't trust me." Daniel's voice was quiet, but devastating. "You gave us a reason not to." She left without another word. This time, the door didn't slam. It closed softly, like something final. That night, Daniel and I sat on the couch, the house finally still. "I failed you," he said. "I considered that. You failed to protect us," I said carefully. "But you didn't fail to correct it." He looked at me, eyes red. Are we okay?" I didn't answer right away, because this wasn't just about money. It was about power, about boundaries, about whether I could stay married to a man who only found his spine after the damage was done. "I need to see change," I said. "Not promises." He nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes." I leaned back, exhausted to my bones. Then, "It starts with this." I opened my laptop and slid it toward him. A spreadsheet. Every dollar I'd put into the joint accounts. Every deposit from my business. Every transfer May had touched. "I'm reclaiming my contribution," I said. "All of it." He swallowed. "From my parents?" "Yes," I said. "From the person who took it." Daniel nodded slowly. "Okay." That word, "okay," felt different now. He wasn't appeasing. He was agreeing. 2 days later, May called again. "This time," I answered. "Lauren," she said coldly. "You want war?" I smiled to myself. "No. I want my money." She laughed bitterly. "You will not get it." "Actually," I said calmly, "you already sent part of it back." Silence. "You didn't realize the automatic transfers were still active," I continued. "The ones feeding the margin account. I reversed them." Her breath hitched. "And I've documented everything," I added. "Dates, amounts, account numbers." Her voice dropped. "You wouldn't." "I already did." I heard something clatter on her end. Maybe her phone. Maybe her composure. "This will destroy family," she hissed. I replied softly. "You did that when you decided consent didn't matter." She hung up. That night, Daniel held me like he was afraid I'd disappear. "I didn't see it," he whispered. How controlling she was. I stared at the ceiling. "You saw it. You just learned to survive it." He tightened his arms. "I don't want to live like that anymore." "Then don't," I said. "But understand this. If it happens again, I won't fight for us alone." He nodded. "Never again." I didn't say "we'll see." I said nothing, because trust isn't rebuilt with words. It's rebuilt with consistent, uncomfortable action. And the next move, legal, financial, final, was already in motion. Because May thought the worst thing that could happen was public embarrassment. She was wrong. The worst thing that could happen to someone like her was losing control completely. Part 5. Get justice. Lesson. People think the story ends when the money comes back. It doesn't. That's just when the aftermath begins. Because when someone like May loses control, they don't disappear quietly. They test the fence. They look for cracks. They wait for fatigue, guilt, nostalgia, anything that might make you loosen your grip. I knew that, so I stayed ready. In April, 3 months after New Year's, Daniel came home with that familiar tightness in his jaw. "She called," he said. I didn't stop typing. "What does she want?" "She says she wants to apologize." That got my attention. I turned slowly. "Did she say the word sorry?" He hesitated. She said, "Maybe mistakes were made." I laughed. "Not cruelly. Clearly. That's not an apology," I said. "That's a negotiation." He sighed. "She wants to come over. Just dinner." I closed my laptop. "Daniel," I said evenly, "your mother didn't just hurt my feelings. She risked my financial future without consent. Access to me doesn't reset, because time passed." He nodded. "I know. I wanted to ask." That mattered. Because before, he wouldn't have asked. The real test came 2 weeks later. A letter arrived. Not an email. A physical letter from Mice Bank, addressed to Daniel. I opened it with him standing beside me. Inside was a notice. Account closure. Margin account liquidated. Outstanding balance settled. At the bottom, a line that made my stomach tighten. Funds applied from personal account holder, May Whitfield. She'd paid the remaining losses herself, not because she suddenly grew a conscience, because she'd finally run out of leverage. Daniel stared at the letter for a long time. She never used her own money before, he said quietly. I nodded. Because she never had to. That was the real justice. Not yelling, not revenge, but consequence. She had felt it in her own account, her own safety net, and that changed the balance forever. A week later, she showed up at our door, unannounced. Again, but this time, something was different. No red dress, no authority posture. She stood there holding a container of food, like an offering. Daniel looked at me, uncertain. I walked past him and opened the door myself. Lauren, May said stiffly, I come to talk. I didn't step aside. I'm listening, I said. From here. Her mouth tightened. You have made your point, she said. The money issue is finished. I didn't make a point, I replied calmly. I drew a boundary. She inhaled sharply. You humiliated me. I tilted my head. No, your actions did. Silence stretched. Finally, she said, Daniel is my son, and I'm his wife, I said, which means decisions about our money will never go through you again. She looked past me, at him. Daniel didn't move, didn't speak, didn't rescue her. That was the moment she truly understood what she'd lost. I worry about you, she said to me, softer now. You are very independent. I smiled not unkindly. I know. She nodded once. Then she turned and walked away. No scene, no apology, no reconciliation fantasy, just reality. That night, Daniel sat beside me on the couch. She'll never admit she was wrong, he said. I don't need her to, I replied. I needed her to stop. He leaned his head back. I didn't realize how much I let her run my life. I took his hand. You were trained to. He squeezed my fingers. Thank you for not letting it run ours. 6 months later, our finances looked different. Not bigger, clearer. Separate accounts, shared goals, written agreements. Not because we don't trust each other, but because trust doesn't require blindness. My business crossed a milestone I never told May about. On purpose. Some wins are private. At our next New Year's party, 1 year later, the house felt different. Lighter. Smaller guest list. No speeches about family money. Just laughter, food, and people who respected the space they were in. At 11:59 p.m, Daniel raised his glass and looked at me. To a year where we chose honesty, he said. I clinked my glass against his. And consent, I added. The room laughed. But I meant it. Here's the lesson I learned, the one no one teaches you until you live it. Control disguised as care is still control. Tradition doesn't outrank consent. And money you earn is never a family resource unless you say it is. I didn't win by humiliating my mother-in-law. I won by taking my life back. Quietly, legally, and permanently. And once you do that, no one ever mistakes you for manageable again.